I'm an anti-feminist because I think it's oppressive. I think it's anti-male. I think it's anti-femininity.
Now, it may be a very weak Brexit, but I tell you what, Brexit of any kind and leaving those treaties as well.
That's the best ever interview. Michael Parkinson, you got nothing on this bloke.
Now, one of the other issues that I want to have a chat to you about, just pick your thoughts, pick your brain on, is the Adani coal mine. They've decided to go ahead and finance themselves. How soon do you think it will be before they're cutting ground and employing locals?
Well, look, I mean, our mining and resources sector is a critical part of the Queensland economy, and certainly to generate baseload power, we still require coal to be able to do that, and we need that for our energy security, our reliability, and also affordability as well. And that's not only for households, but also for business and industry here in Queensland. To give you an exact timeline, we've seen recent announcements in the last few days in relation to what the project will look like moving forward. But I, like everyone else, can't give you an exact time frame of when that will happen in central Queensland.
Is it likely to be 3 months, 12 months?
Look, it's hard to...
Not even a ballpark?
Look, it's hard to know, Dave, and simply because there have been many challenges along the way, as we all know, in relation to financing and then going through also approvals processes at both the state and federal level and various objections and legal actions that have been taking place. But it's an important project for jobs here in Queensland and certainly in relation to central Queensland, but it's also an important project in relation to our overall mining and resources sector here in Queensland. Now, a feature of recent elections and campaigns since, I guess, the last two governments, 2012, 2015, we've seen the fear campaign spread by the Labor Party about the sell-off of assets in Queensland. And one of the big fears is that if we privatise the electricity production, then they will be turning the prices up, gouging us and profiteering at the expense of Queensland electricity customers. Now, it's recently come to light, care of one of your colleagues, that the Queensland government is profiting somewhere in the vicinity of $460, $470 a year, unnecessary inflated charges above the cost of distribution and everything else like this. It strikes me as odd that anybody would think selling the assets to somebody else is a problem, because the Queensland government is certainly profiteering off. It's just a discreet way of taxing us a little bit more via our electricity bill to prop up the budget. What would do you think the right approach should be? Should they, I mean, they're giving us $50 back and crowing about it like it's generous in a year, but where do you think the right point is that? Should they be making zero profit out of it? Should they be halving that amount? Or do you think they've probably got the balance right with making nearly $500 a year profit off electricity customers? Well, the socialist Pellowe Labor government is using electricity as a secret tax. State debt here in Queensland is going to hit $83 billion by 2021-2022. That's where it's forecasted to reach, and that's a terrible legacy that this socialist... $83 billion. $83 billion. $83 billion by 2021-2022. That's what it's forecast to reach. And that's a terrible legacy for this socialist Labor, Pellowe Labor government to leave to future generations. They're also introducing new taxes here in Queensland, including a waste tax, which will hit households and also businesses as well. And this is what, again, needs to be realised by people out there. Elections matter. And the re-election of the Pellowe Labor government has meant that we don't have any credible economic plan for Queensland to ensure that we are paying down our debt. Unemployment in Queensland is over 6%, and Queensland is at the bottom of the ladder when it comes to other state jurisdictions. And in parts of rural and regional Queensland, we're seeing youth unemployment over 30%, and in outback Queensland up to 50% as well. And that's 1 in 2 young Queenslanders not being able to get a job. And there's no comprehensive infrastructure plan to ensure water security and investing in the vital water infrastructure that we need, let alone building the roads to bust congestion, particularly in the southeast corner, or also building the hospitals and schools that we need into the future as well. And so
That's why we need a responsible government when it comes to economic management. That's what the Liberal National Party is about, and ensuring that we do have responsible financial management to invest in the vital infrastructure and services that we need here in Queensland.
How much would an LNP government reduce Queensland household electricity prices by?
Well, we are looking at all of our policies moving forward. We were unsuccessful, as you know, at the 2017 state election. All of our policies are currently under review. There are at least 2 more budgets that the government will hand down between now and then, and we won't really know what the true economic picture is going to be until we get into that 2020
Is there a
election
philosophical
cycle.
position you can tell me about the electricity profiteering that the Queensland government currently does? Like, they're saying we give you back 50. Does the LNP think that's generous, or do you think you can do significantly better?
Well, certainly we don't believe in some of the quasi-economic strategies that the government is undertaking, and using electricity as a secret tax is simply not on. Shifting general debt to government-owned corporations, which the Labor government did in its first term, is not appropriate, or raiding the defined benefit schemes of public servants is not an appropriate strategy. So the Labor Party always has these smoke and mirror economic strategies, quasi-economic strategies, which are unsustainable. And what we need is a proper comprehensive economic plan that's going to ensure that the debt is manageable, but also that people get the services that they need, and that the roads, the bridges, the dams and health and education services are built for all Queenslanders.
There's a few more things I want to chat to you about, but probably the next major question, just so I can let you go, is new power stations. Is there any desire amongst your parliamentary colleagues to build new power stations here in Queensland?
Well, certainly we gave a commitment before the last 2017 election that we would build a new coal-fired power station in North Queensland. Now, as I've said again, we're only into that sort of first year since losing that election. All of our policies are under review, but what we know is that we need affordable power here in Queensland, and that's not only important for households but for business and industry. It needs to be reliable, and it needs to be secure as well. And the Pellowe Labor government's renewable energy target of 50% by 2030 is going to jeopardise energy security, reliability and affordability. And we've seen what's happened in South Australia previously. The last thing that needs to occur here in Queensland is that we end up as South Australia ended up.
Should green energy, renewable energy, intermittent energy, should it be subsidised by the taxpayers, by the government? Well,
certainly there's a role for renewable energy, but it must stack up on its own merits. So from an energy perspective, the LNP is agnostic as long as there is reliability and affordability, and also that it's secure. We certainly understand that there is a role for renewables, but it's about...
Does that mean there's a role for subsidising it?
Well, it must stand up on its own merits. So really when it comes to subsidies, look, there's been a range of those that have been provided over the years, but the taxpayer predominantly can't continue to subsidise every form of new innovation that comes along. It's unsustainable. We are only a small country when it comes to our population status, and there's a further discussion about immigration and the size of the population that we can have here in Australia, given some of the issues that we have around infrastructure and infrastructure spending as well. So look, there are many challenges that are going to be faced here in Queensland, but also across Australia, and particularly when it comes to energy, the Labor Party's policies will jeopardise reliability and affordability and sustainability.
What about subsidising coal? What are the justifications? Why would that be good for the taxpayer to invest in coal-powered energy production?
Well, look, they're all ongoing debates which have happened around it as to what forms of energy should be supported. But what the people of Queensland and Australia expect is that when they turn their light switch on, the lights come on. When they turn on their air conditioner, it comes on, and they expect that governments have a framework and process in place to ensure that there are viable industries to ensure reliability, security and affordability when it comes to energy.
In wrapping up, tell me a little bit about your background and what you bring to the table. I think no, I'll just leave it at that. Tell me, your background is in medicine and a doctor, and specifically drug rehabilitation?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Brisbane and went to school in Brisbane at an Anglican school, and then was fortunate enough to get the results to get into medicine at the University of Queensland, and I did my medical degree and then went to the Royal Brisbane Hospital. I spent many years working in rural and regional Queensland, and I was a former president of the Rural Doctors Association of Queensland and the Australian Medical Association, and really sort of cut my teeth, I guess, in medico-politics, but had involvement in the conservative side of politics from being a young child, and I used to go to many of the National Civic Council meetings with my mother, who, so I met Bob Santa Maria through that as a young child. And my mother taught predominantly in Catholic schools, even though she was an Anglican. So I guess, as a child, I had a very normal upbringing that I'd regard, and all of the, the great things that happen with, sporting clubs and being involved. But, from a very young age, I was, I guess, taught by my parents, be civic-minded, care about community, make a contribution as you can. And having been a doctor and a specialist physician and been involved in those organisations, it's been a great privilege to do all those things before heading into mainstream politics.
And your special experience in drug rehab medicine?
Yeah, so I developed an interest in that. We're working in some Indigenous communities particularly, and for me, I guess it was a holistic specialty. There was a lot of physical issues that people developed as a result of excessive, alcohol use or developing drug dependency problems, but there was also the psychological issues of anxiety and depression and psychosis, and then there was a public health aspect as well. So I thought it was a very holistic specialty, and so that's how I sort of developed that interest and did the specialty training with the College of Physicians in that area.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. I've got so many more questions for you, but better let you get back to the real job.
All right, well, thanks so much, Dave, and I look forward to joining you again.
Thank you. That's Dr. Christian Rowan, and he will be one of the guest speakers on Friday afternoon at the Church and State Summit. You can grab the tickets from that now at churchandstate.com.au, and you can see last year's videos. They've been reduced. Make a great Christmas present, so are tickets to the summit. So head to that website to do that. And you can see past episodes and articles by me at davepellowe.com, also pellowetalk.com. And make sure you subscribe to the newsletter there so you can get regular updates, and head along to the donate page. And thank you to the Pellowe Talk partners for keeping this mission going. And we'll see you in the next episode.